From NJ.com and the Star Ledger, welcome to the Rutgers Rant, your one-stop podcast for the Scarlet Knights, with your hosts Steve Politti and Rutgers insiders Brian Fonseca and Pat Lenny. Let's start shopping.
All right, hello everybody. Emergency podcast. We have an emergency pod. Sound the alarms. I'm here with Fonseca. Pat Lanny's got a wedding. He's the best man. Apparently that's more important than sounding off on what happened last night between Rutgers and Ohio State. And just to set the scene, you know, you're thinking, at least I was thinking, Rutgers is going to have a nice night here. They got the Ray Guy Award. You know, Adam Korsak finally gets the nod he deserves. You're like, things are going Rutgers' way. Oh, and look, they're come from behind, big rally against Ohio State on the road, a place they've never won, playing a great game overall. Showing a lot of poise down the stretch. And then, I mean, holy crap, the last 7 seconds of that game, just the way it unfolded. And there are like 16 things to talk about. I mean, let's just go through the whole thing. 1 second. We need to start with the decision to foul. All right. So I didn't have a problem with it at all. You know, Steve Pikiell, clearly you're up 3, 7 seconds left. At the time, I'm like, he's got a foul here. They fouled there, right? I mean, what was going through your mind?
Yeah. So to paint the picture on how I kind of cover these away games, it's very stressful having to write a gamer when it's a one possession game. There's seconds left. I'm kind of watching a stream that's behind on my computer. I'm kind of looking at the stat broadcast. So I see Rutgers is up, 3 points with 7 seconds left. I'm like, wow, they're going to pull this out. And not to fast forward a bit, but as I'm writing, I'm checking the stat broadcast, and then it says Ohio State 67, Rutgers 66 with 0 seconds left. I'm like, oh my God, how in the world did they lose this game? I could not believe it.
So you weren't up to date?
I didn't watch the end of it originally because I was on stat broadcast, and then I looked over and I watched how it happened. And then we're in the post-game press conference, and Aaron Brightman of the Scarlet Faithful, formerly of On the Banks, he's like, guys, I think he stepped out of bounds. And me and Jerry Carino are kind of, we were both writing gamers and and we're trying to figure out what the heck happened. I watched the replay on Twitter, and I saw the reaction, and it was a whole. And
oh my God, yeah, Twitter was on fire.
Yes,
holy cow!
And we were going to ask Pikiell about it, and then he just brings it up himself in his opening statement. So obviously he saw it. Anyway, that just kind of set the scene of how I watched that end. I'm sure you were watching on TV, right?
Yeah, I was, absolutely, yes. Yep, watching live on TV. Yeah.
So I was, my thoughts on the decision to foul up 3 were finally, Steve Pikiell has been very hesitant to do that in the past. Right. He's a very old school. I'm going to let my guys defend the final possession. It's very interesting that when he has the greatest 3-point defense in the country, literally the greatest 3-point defense in the country, is when he decides to turn on that. That being said, I think it was the right decision. I agree with him that had Rutgers done its part and Caleb McConnell hits that second free throw, the absolute worst case scenario is they go to overtime. And that's something you take 100 times out of 100. I think Rutgers would have beat Ohio State in overtime. The only thing that you can kind of nitpick about the decision to foul, Mawot Mag did it a little too early. Ohio State hadn't passed midcourt yet. You probably could have shaved off a couple more seconds, but that's really, really, really grasping at straws. I thought it was a great decision. No problem there on my end. And it sounds like you agree, right?
I do, yeah. And the one thing I will say this, the one thing I did notice of the 37 things that happened in those 7 seconds is that the clock did not immediately start when McConnell's shot hit the rim. It started after the pass. It's just one of these little things, but that half second, of course, they wouldn't have gotten the shot off down the floor. I mean, just one more thing that happened. Anyway, yes.
My question to that is, if the ball touches the rim, is that when the clock's supposed to start, or when someone touches the ball? The clock was late because the clock didn't start until after he passed the ball. But I'm curious. I think it's after
he touches the ball. Right. Yes. Correct.
So there was probably
didn't touch it till after the pass. There was only a tenth of a second went off the clock between Ohio State getting the ball to the next guy. And it just wasn't enough time that came off the clock. Maybe it's a half second. You think it's 0.2 of a second? So
when we talk about home court advantage in the Big Ten, a lot of people think about the crowd and everything. This home cooking, it matters. It makes a difference. And if you think something like that would not happen at the rack in Rutgers' favor, you're either ignoring it on purpose or you're not sure, because things like this happen all the time all over college basketball. Not to say it's right, but this is I wasn't totally surprised to see that.
Right. All right. So we're both giving Peichel a pass on that. So now the next thing that happens, of course, is he dribbles up the court. Was he out of bounds? And I will say this, like while you're trying to catch up as to what happened, I was going full Zapruder film, like frame by frame. This is like every Rutgers fan must have done this. So as I'm going frame by frame to see if I could find an angle and like blow it up. Like I'm trying to think of another movie I haven't seen, but older Rutgers fans will the movie High Anxiety, where they keep on blowing up the pictures until they prove that Thorndike was not the murderer. I'm like, God, that is a dated cultural reference, people. Please tweet at me if you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so I'm doing the same thing with this, just blowing up this kid's foot on the line. And you can't tell until someone later in the game came up with another clip where you look at it. And I mean, to borrow an NFL term, I don't think that would be overturned based on that video evidence. Like, did you think he stepped out of bounds? I don't know that if he did, it was by a millimeter. Like,
yeah. I do want to. I couldn't find that video anywhere other than our friends at the Night Report. They somehow found that video from Slam. I couldn't find it anywhere else. Great investigation from them to find that clip. I agree with you. That is a tremendous way to put it, because it was like the tip of the right side of his shoe maybe possibly could have potentially touched the sideline.
You could have made that call. You could have called them out if the ref had seen it, but you certainly, if you looked at that video, you'd be like, I don't know, right?
Well, also the fact that we had to enhance, zoom in 10,000% from multiple angles to see if he maybe went out of bounds. I would think it's fair to say that Roger Ayers, as close as he was to the play, it would be pretty hard to see that in real time when everything's happening to notice if he went out of bounds or not. It's not like the kid took 4 feet out of bounds.
And he could have just as easily called a foul on McConnell there.
That is the other argument that I would make is yes, that those things are negated because that was a
don't
foul.
complain about him stepping out of bounds because that was very close to being. And of course, it would have been a better situation had McConnell actually been called for the foul because they couldn't have won the game. But all right.
If they do call the foul, then everyone's going to say, but he stepped out of bounds. It would have been a whole debacle another way.
Just a whole debacle another way.
But what they wouldn't know is that it would have led to maybe the most heart-wrenching loss since Iowa found some extra space on the backboard and hit that game winner at the rack.
Yeah,
years ago.
that was bad. I think this is worse. All right. So what happens next? And this is when Twitter came after me in a real way, because I was so busy Zapruder filming the stepping out of bounds that I really didn't look at the fact that who hit the shot again? What's the kid's name?
Tanner Holden.
And Holden was out of bounds before he got the pass. And this is when Jay Billis jumped in and then, clearly was out of bounds. Is that a call? And this is my question. Is that a call that you're going to get? And I put this on Twitter and people if it's a call, if it's a rule, it's a rule. And I get that it's a rule. I understand it's a rule. But have you ever seen a shot overturned on something like that? I was trying to think of an instance. I'm sure it's happened, but watch a lot of college basketball. I could not remember one in a situation where that happened.
So Chris Mack, who coached Xavier in Louisville, who has seen and watched and thought about college basketball more than you and I have in 10 lifetimes.
Of course. Yes.
Says that happens dozens of times in games and refs call it maybe 1 time out of 10.
Right.
It's
like the 3 point. It's like a 3 second violation, right? That's what it is. Yeah.
Yes. I don't remember the last time I saw it. I tweeted that and people were coming at me like it happened to Mawat Mag earlier this season. It happens all the time. Suddenly it happens in every
happens all the time. I have not seen it happen all the time. I mean,
maybe I just don't notice. It's very possible. I'm oblivious. I don't know. I have never seen it. I have never seen a game winning shot overturned because of that. Now, maybe it's never as blatant as that because the guy he was
it was very blatant. Right. Yes.
He was almost in the crowd at that point. Right. Now, I will say to expect a referee, 1, to see that in the middle of all of that, and 2, to have the stones to call that on a game winning shot in a home arena. That would be.
That would take something. Yeah, it would take something.
It would be like, imagine the roles were reversed and it was at the rack and the referee did call. I think the student section would storm the court and pile drive the referee into the ground.
I cannot imagine. Absolutely. It's great.
And also the fact that we're diving into the rule book, section 9, article B, like it's the Constitution, and we're trying to decipher law.
I went one step further in the rule book, and I found I guess if the momentum takes you out of bounds, this is some guy tweeted this, and I retweeted it just as what about just curious what people think, and it turns out the guy I retweeted is like a big anti-vaxxer, and people amplify his opinions, and I'm like, I didn't know he's anti-vaxxer. I just thought it was an interesting discussion about the rules. So the momentum takes you out of bounds. It's okay, but what how do you make that? It's just one of those things. His momentum took him out of bounds because he was running toward the out of bounds. That's just crazy. Anyway, clearly out of bounds. Yes. Violation. Absolutely. We agree on that, right?
If they called that, everyone would understand that it is a violation. I think people would just be more, you know how when there's a second left in the game, referees don't usually call fouls 100 feet from the basket. Yes. It's a foul, but you just don't do it because I just don't think you overturn a game-winning shot on that.
You never call a foul in a situation unless you're Seton Hall in the national championship game in 1989. I'll get some emails about that. Yes, very rarely is a game at that point decided on a foul. Correct.
Yes. And look, does it stink? It absolutely stinks. I can only imagine the sinking feeling in Steve Pikiell's stomach. And you saw Paul Mulcahy fall to the court. You saw Caleb.
Oh my gosh, Caleb McConnell. Gut wrenching. Absolutely.
You feel awful for Caleb just because he's in his home state. He had so much family there, and he had the opportunity there in his hands.
And he hit first 10. What is it? First 10 free throws of the season. He missed that one. I mean, that's rough. Yeah, there's no question.
You had your first win in Columbus there. You came back from an 11-point deficit in the first half. You clamped
2-0 in the Big Ten.
You're 2-0 in the Big Ten for the first time ever in a season with fans in the stands. You legitimately put yourself in position to compete for the Big Ten title entering January. I mean, all of these things were right there. And to have them taken away with that is that must have been the quietest, just most agonizing airplane ride back home. I cannot imagine.
Right. I will say this. I did. And it's amazing. Short term, this did nothing to hurt the Scarlet Knights. I mean, they moved up 4 spots in the net. I saw that they're 27th in the net. They proved they can win on the road. They proved that beating Indiana, it was no fluke. They're good. I don't think this is I'm not worried about this team at all. In fact, if anything, I come out of that game feeling better about the team than I did before. I mean, really, I thought Spencer had a good game. I was a little questionable. Felt like we talked about in the pod a couple of days ago, a little worried about his ability to get the shot. I thought he was good. The Mulcahy was good. Caleb McConnell was great. You look at all these things, and they got beat on the boards in the first half a little bit. There wasn't a perfect performance by any stretch, but resilient. Yeah, I mean, I think they came out of this one just fine.
I will push back on a couple of things. I agree with you on most things. They didn't prove they can win on the road because they didn't win on the road. I saw some people who take.
Okay, all right, fair. You're a stickler. You're a stickler for details.
Yeah, when Rutgers is a game back for the lead in the Big Ten, we're gonna go to the league and say, hey.
As we're prying on those, we're pouring over the NCAA tournament resume, and they go, oh God, they're only 2-9 on the road. If you're like, oh shoot, that's gonna be the one, right?
Yeah. Well, they didn't prove they can win on the road. They proved that they can compete on the road, which is a good sign. Mm-hmm. Had they won this game, amazingly, they would have won 3 of their last 5 Big Ten road games, which is an incredible statistic. I think before that. I had the number down before I had to delete it from my running gamer. Prior to the last 5 road games, they were 8-37 in Big Ten road games under Steve Pikiell, and they were about to win 3 of their next 5. So, I mean, it's just again brutal to lose that. I thought Caleb was fine. I thought he was a lot better offensively the last 2 games before this. I don't think he was particularly efficient. I agree with Cam. Cam had a great game, and Caleb had an opportunity to seal the game in the last minute, lost in that shuffle. Cam Spencer drives off a screen, dumps a great bounce pass to him. Ball just goes right through his hands. I don't know if Caleb would have hit the shot, but he certainly could have gotten fouled as he went up. He was in just great position and just lets slip. I thought Rutgers did not play very well offensively. I mean, they hit 3 of their first 5 threes, and then they went 2 of 13 or 2 of 11 in the last 13. They missed all 5 threes they took in the second half. Andre Hyatt had a great look for a dagger 3 at the end.
Yeah. Right. I mean, again, he was open. I guess great look. He has to take that shot, but if he makes that shot, it's a great job. I have no problem with that shot.
And they shot, 5 of 8 on free throws. They didn't get to the free throw line enough, and they didn't make the free throws enough when they got there. I thought Paul Mulcahy, maybe he didn't see Cam Spencer on that last throw-in when he gave it to Caleb McConnell. Cam was open, and Cam's almost automatic from the free throw line. And again, Caleb had hit 9 of 9 on the season before that, so it's hard to argue. Gave it to Caleb too. But just these little things add up. I will say the net going up is because Rutgers was decently efficient defensively against the third best offense in the country. After Zed Key went off in that first half, they really clambered down on him and had a pretty good second half. I think this one, I'm interested to see the reaction on Sunday against Seton Hall. Is this going to be a team that comes out with its hair on fire and just takes all of its frustration out on Seton Hall? Or does this linger? Does this become take them a first 5-10 minutes to kind of get over the funk of we could have had that win before,
Right. That's a great point. Yeah. And then Seton Hall's Seton Hall's not good, or at least they haven't looked good. They were playing someone. It's never a good thing when you're up by a couple of points on an opponent. And I look at the score line and I have to Google the opponent to see Lincoln, Pennsylvania. I had all right. Apparently they're a Division II school. Langston Hughes went there. I learned from my Google search, not that that's important to what happened. They eventually blew them out, but again, a team, a game they really should win. Really, I don't have to win, but kind of have to win to complete to get the important non-conference win. I think they will come out hair on fire. I think the RAC. I think people be crazy. That place is going to be angry. And I've seen the RAC. There's different moods of the RAC. It's a building with a personality. And sometimes it's, the anticipation of it. And people are just, they're waiting to explode. And there have been times in that building where people are just angry. And this could be one of those times. I think you're going to feel that vibe from the moment you walk in there. The refs are going to hear it. It won't, I don't know what refs are going to have. Would it be Big Ten refs for this game? I guess. Who do we have?
Yeah, I would assume so. But also the referee that didn't call it, Roger Ayers, was from the ACC. So I don't know what he was doing there.
I don't know. How do you get there? That's interesting.
But yes, interesting. It was his 28th game in 35 days. So this guy's working.
Right.
Yes, this guy is working around the clock, which is maybe why he was probably taking a quick nap before that last play.
It's a broader issue. The officiating is bad. And I know it's college officiating. You could spend hours talking about it being bad, but it's bad. It's noticeably bad. I don't know. The Indiana game, it was bad in Rutgers' favor. There was a foul late in that game by Paul Mulcahy that wasn't called. That he just just basically grab the arm of the Indiana guy. It's just there are things you're seeing in these games. You're like, how did they miss that call? Do you agree?
Yeah, it's funny that Rutgers fans didn't complain about the officiating against Indiana. Paul Mulcahy almost ripped Trace Jackson Davis.
Right. Yeah.
But
an important play that could have changed that game. Yeah,
absolutely. But that was at a point where Indiana was starting to make a late comeback. And then I think Rutgers goes up the floor and scores again. Anyway, it is what it is. I don't see any Ohio State fans complaining about the officiating in this game. It's just kind of the way the sport works. Bo Borowski retiring apparently did not solve all the ills of college.
Didn't solve all the problems. Who knew?
Maybe it's not just him. Maybe I dare say he was one of the better referees in the conference. I do think people have a little too much hate for him. I think he was just too he had Teddy Valentine syndrome where his face was too recognizable. Anyway, officiating is bad. I would hate to be a referee. I could see why there's so much problems getting referees. The youth numbers, the referee numbers are down across the country. Less people want to do it because it sucks. It is a thankless job. Why would anyone want to be a referee is always my question. So I'm not surprised. But what's the solution? I have no idea. And I think college referees have sucked for a long time, and they're going to keep sucking, and just part of the sport. It's part of the charm.
Yes, part of the charm. I guess that's one way of putting it. All right. Are we going to hear from the Big Ten? This what happens now? Does Rutgers have to send that game? Do they send a note to the Big Ten and say, hey, you got to say something? Or is this going to be one of these situations where it just kind of goes away?
So I reached out to the Big Ten through multiple avenues. I have not heard back as of 11 o'clock Friday morning. I would not suspect to hear anything. And if we do, it would not be till, maybe a 5 o'clock Friday news dump. I could definitely see that. But I don't think the Big Ten really has a tendency to, reply publicly or comment publicly about these things. Maybe if it was a foul call, a judgment call, Might be something that they would comment. But this, I'm not entirely sure they'll publicly say anything. The Rutgers could and will complain to the league. They have a mechanism where teams can discuss with the league through some avenue about potential calls in games. They do it after every game. Every team does, because every team has a gripe after every game because no official is perfect, etc. So I'm sure Rutgers will bring this up. I'm sure the next league game at the RAC will, there will be a couple of fouls going Rutgers' way. That's just the way these things kind of seem to even out. But yes, I would be surprised if the Big Ten said anything. I mean, you could tell me. I don't think there's really much to gain for them to say anything other than just letting this kind of.
Well, I mean, I do wonder long term. And someone asked on Twitter if is this? I get it. It's not gonna be reversed. But will the NCAA tournament committee remember this one? And my first reaction was, well, there are 360 teams. They all play 30 games. I mean, no one. The committee is not thinking about one random Thursday night in this early December here with all the other data they've got to compile. But if the league does come out and say, all right, yeah, this one, we missed this one, does that make a difference? I mean, I don't know. I don't think so, but
I don't know. I don't sit on those meetings. I mean, fans always talk about, will they remember the games that Rutgers was down players? I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard if Rutgers was at full strength, they would be 8-0 before Thursday night.
If Woody had gone directly to the police, this would never have happened. Anyway, another cultural reference.
Yeah, that went over my head. I'm not even going to bother making you feel old.
Thank you.
Rutgers fans, and this is not exclusive to Rutgers. I don't mean to pick on Rutgers fans because all fans do this, but I cover Rutgers obviously, so I noticed this. They noticed that Rutgers lost when they didn't have Caleb McConnell or Paul Mulcahy. I didn't see anybody really downplaying the Indiana win because they didn't have their 5-star freshman Jalen Hood-Schifino. I didn't see anybody really downplaying this Ohio State game because they were down a starter.
Yeah, it's true. Yep, so it happens. It's college basketball.
If the committee were going to spend pouring through every game, who was missing who, which referee calls missed what, the NCAA tournament wouldn't happen until next November. So here's my solution for Rutgers. Win enough games in the Big Ten that it doesn't matter. Hit your free throws so that it doesn't matter. Shoot slightly better on threes so it doesn't matter. And don't put a game, it's easier said than done, obviously, but don't put a game in the referee's hands in the last second. And look, I think all things considered, if you gave Rutgers that scenario where Ohio State is taking a desperation 3 at the buzzer to win the game from a guy who had not scored all night, I think you take that. Sometimes,
what are you going to do?
Yeah, sometimes the ball goes in. Sometimes Ron Harper hits a game-winning half-court shot from midcourt. Sometimes college basketball happens. And
you would have signed for it. You absolutely would have signed for it. 30-foot off balance. What can you say? He hit a great shot. It's just one of those moments in the sport.
College basketball is so great when it's good to you. And then when it's not, all of a sudden the world is against you, right? It's part of the sport. It's part of what makes it magical. And these moments are what make the good moments that much sweeter. So
yes,
I would say,
to your broader point, there should be plenty more good moments for this team.
I would think so. I was very impressed with how they played, where they played, against who they played. I think that, I'm skeptical when they play these cupcake teams in the beginning of the season. I always say to wait and get sample size against good teams. I would say in their last 3 games, Rutgers has really impressed me, and I would be surprised if they're not in the NCAA tournament. And I can certainly see them finishing top 4 in the Big Ten because, I mean, they've shown the potential, the ability, the talent to do that.
Right. And that's really the bigger point that matters. I know it's hard to forget about it now, but in a month, hopefully Rutgers will make you forget about it. All right. That's all I got on the basketball.
Here's how they can. In a month, January 15th, Ohio State comes to the RAC.
Oh, that's going to be angry.
RAC.
That's going to be angry.
They might. That's going to be maybe. I mean, last year's Ohio State game was an unbelievable environment. This might be the best RAC environment we've ever seen because people are going to be frothing at the mouth at that game.
Yeah, last year's Ohio State game was one of the most impressive victories I had seen by a Rutgers team. That was the game they were down 10 points with like 4 minutes to go. I mean, that was just incredible, right? Am I thinking of the right one?
It was 8 points with 4 minutes left, and then Geo Baker turned the clock back and had a vintage closing performance, blocked that shot, and they blocked the shot, and the buzzer sounds, and you can't hear the buzzer end the game because the crowd is so loud.
That's right. It was amazing.
Unbelievable. and I think it'll be similar. And I guess to the broader point too, like I think Rutgers Indiana is probably the biggest rivalry for basketball in the Big Ten since they've joined. Ohio State, they're starting to get a little, there was the Miles Johnson game 3 years ago in Columbus. There's that finished last year at the RAC. Maybe, these games are getting really exciting. Maybe there's something boiling there too. So this is also the fun part about Rutgers getting good at basketball is that you get these kind of these series, like these are the things that build rivalries and that make people remember and make these games so much more exciting.
Yes, the fact that this is a thing is great. Absolutely. Good point. All right. That's all I got. You got anything else?
Yeah, I'm fired up for Sunday. It should be an awesome game. I have a fun story that I think people will like tomorrow morning. A little teaser for you guys.
Tease me. What do you got?
So Steve Pikiell has never lost to Seton Hall at the RAC.
Okay.
He's won 2 games. There's kind of a through line there in that the first game, 2017, his first signature win, the first court storm of the RAC era, of the Steve Pikiell era, I should say. I talked to the hero from that game, and he gave me some awesome insight, not only on what happened that game, but the night before that I don't think has ever been told. And I'm very excited to kind of dish that.
Who was the hero of that game? I'm gonna have to think long and hard about this now.
Who's the first major star of the Steve Pikiell era? He did not recruit him.
Corey Sanders.
Oh
wow, you got Corey Sanders. Where is he now? Is he in Greece?
Poland. He's in Poland.
He's in Poland. Very good.
We were talking a bit before the interview about his winding journey. We discussed Portugal. He played in Portugal for a year. He loved Porto, which is a beautiful city. I agree with him. He actually won a title there and was on the cover of a newspaper that I still have. Very, very cool. Anyway, he played in Portugal. He played in Poland. He went to Greece. This started this year. He went to Israel, and then he said he didn't like the basketball, so he went back to Poland. He was in the Dominican Republic this summer for a summer league. Wow. Guy's been traveling everywhere. And he was very, very insightful about his Rutgers past, and he was very thankful to the fans and had great memories. So, I'm looking forward to I still have to write the story, but I'm looking forward to getting that up Saturday morning. And I really do think Rutgers fans are gonna enjoy the blast from the past.
Excellent, something to look forward to. All right, you go right.
Oh, I gotta watch Brazil lose to Croatia first, but once I do that, I'll
okay. We no more soccer talk for at least a week. All right. That's our emergency podcast. Thanks for listening for Fonseca. We miss you, Lanny. Hope you're having a good wedding, and we'll be back after from more basketball to talk soon. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Rutgers Rant. To participate in the conversation and receive live updates about the Scarlet Knights directly to your phone, sign up at NJ.com/insider.